Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Northstar Podcast. A very happy new year to all of you. We are on episode 6 now. Today, we have with us Polina Marchenko. She's a serial entrepreneur and a seasoned product manager based out of San Francisco. She currently has three ongoing projects, ventures. First of which is Side Prjct, which is a community for professionals to pick up side projects and collaborate with other like-minded individuals. So you could be an aspiring product manager, an aspiring designer, an aspiring developer, a data scientist, and you can come together, work on something concrete and hands-on to build up your profile in the domain that you choose to. Secondly, she's working on Futurista, wherein she mentors teenage girls to pick the right career for them, be it STEM, business, arts. And thirdly, she's working on something called She Aspired, which is a 30-day career coaching program for young women to break into product management. All this while she's raising a young one at home. So I think there's something to be said about that. So without further ado, let's dive right into it.
So maybe if you could just help us and like the audience understand like how did you really like what was the motivation behind starting the sort of side project community that you have?
Yeah, definitely. So just like you, I'm also product manager, and basically I've been a product manager. I would say now probably almost for like 8 or 9 years, and like the whole space has changed quite a bit. But even like apart from this, why I started it actually, you have to think about like the problems that I saw in the market. Like as a product manager, you basically are looking for problems. So last year, I was leaving San Francisco, so I was moving to another city, and I thought it was the perfect time for me, kind of like to reassess what I want to do in my life. And I wanted to go again more entrepreneurial route and basically see, okay, what kind of initiative do I really want to do, what makes me happy, like thought about my passions and all this stuff. And I started another initiative also for product managers, which is called She Aspired. It's more for female product managers who are just starting in trying to get into product management. And basically from that community, I got a lot of inspiration in terms of what are actually the problems of product managers or aspiring product managers. And many of them were actually coming to me and saying, hey, I have done this certificate, and I have talked to many product managers. I'm trying to apply for jobs, and it's just so difficult to get interviews, so difficult to stand out. And I was always telling everyone is like, okay, you have to do something practical. Just do a side project, do something. You have to build something, because otherwise you will never stand out. And if you do not do something by yourself, if you do not have this practical experience, how can you even imagine being a product manager? It's just like, it's just all theory. And I was giving this advice again and again, and people were coming back to me and saying, yeah, it sounds like reasonable, but I don't know where to start. Like, how should I start a side project? Like doing it on my own. I don't know what idea should I take, what should be a scope, like how should I build it? I actually need engineers, all this stuff, like. And I was like, okay, so it seems like people are struggling with finding teammates. And then I kind of started thinking more and more and started talking like to other people beyond product managers. So I talked to a couple of designers, aspiring designers. I talked to a couple of junior engineers, and it appeared that everyone has the same problem. It's like everyone is lacking practical experience. And basically every second person says, okay, yeah, I would definitely benefit from a practical work. And one day I was like, okay, I'm just going to try it out. So I put together a Google form, and I put it on LinkedIn and said, okay, now I'm building a directory for people who want to build side projects together. If you want to basically build something practical and have a portfolio project. And I think within the next couple of hours, I had 200 people who signed up. And I was like, okay, it seems like my gut feeling was right, and it seems that people are interested in this, because there are definitely platforms like this for people who are trying to find co-founders if you're trying to start your own company. So it's definitely not new, but it seemed back then that there is nothing like that for somebody who just wants to build a side project. So not as serious as a startup where you're committing your full time, or like saying, okay, this is what I built by the end of the year, but literally like practice, with somebody who is from a different field, so you have a feeling of this cross-functional work. Yeah, so basically this is how it all started. I just wanted to solve the problem for people, kind of like this chicken and egg problem, no experience, no job, no job, no experience. and bring them together, so it's kind of like more collaborative, so experience different people. And like this whole situation when you're looking for a job is like very draining. And this is kind of like another side effect of a side project is you're working with somebody who's actually interested in the project and who are also in the same boat as you are. So basically also on a personal level, you connect with each other and support each other and basically lift each other up through your project.
Like how long before that, and you really thought, you know what, I need to start thinking about it on a sort of productized level. I can't do a Google form. I can't email everybody. What was that transition like, and how long did it take?
Yeah, so I'm basically a person who is like really gut feeling person. And back then I already had 2 projects. So I didn't have big plans for side project. I was just thinking, okay, I'm just gonna help people very fast, bring them together on Slack, and that's it. This was like I had a very small scope. And even like I think the first thing what I wrote on the website was side project is my side project. So I didn't really take it so serious, right? But then when I realized like the potential scope of it, that so many people wanted, so we started with 200, now we're almost 2000, and it's just like within a couple of months, and it is without me actively advertising. It's basically through word of mouth. So that's why this transition was like super short. This basically was like this. One day I had, like I was receiving this feedback that people wanted. Then I created the LinkedIn post. People applied, and next day I said like, okay, it's good enough. And for this 200 people, I want to do a Slack community so they can come together and communicate. For this 200 people, I want to do a couple of pitch events so people can present their ideas and so on. This is how it all started. But there was basically almost non-existent transition period, because for me, I think this year it's also kind of like my attitude has changed a lot comparing to, okay, this is a little bit of my backstory. So 8 years ago, I started my company for the first time. So I was a first-time founder, was running it for almost 4 years. And how I feel now is very different to how I was feeling back then. Back then, it felt like I really put everything, like every single, I would say, every single thought, every single cell of my body, I have invested in that startup. And, in the end of the day, I was really burned out. It was very difficult times and so on, always stress, raising money and all this stuff. So this year I was like, okay, I just want to experiment. I want to do a little bit of this. I want to do a little bit of that, take it easy.
I think the couple of things that I wanted to highlight and sort of unpack slightly is the fact that you mentioned, right? I mean, this speed of execution, that you thought of something. I mean, obviously you would have sat with the idea for some amount of time, but once you decided, okay, this is something you're going to give it a shot, it went from a LinkedIn post to this, and that's it, right? So I think a lot of us spend time thinking about an idea, and again, I've been guilty.
Absolutely.
Most of us
Absolutely.
So I think
this is what I'm trying to motivate people also in the community not to overthink, so, and I think this is a huge difference. I think like, because we're chatting between PMs, what I realized, the junior PMs, the problem that they have is they are thinking in terms of ideas and they're not thinking in terms of problems. That's why they can be stuck on one idea and then they're thinking about the execution, like what is important, what's not important, but they forget like the root. They forget that you have to think about the problem. That's why for me, it was almost like from this old startup books, it's like, okay, execution is like super scrappy. Like people probably like would hate it, but people loved it, because it was solving their problem. And like over time, I'm just trying to improve it so they will like it even more. They will benefit from it even more. But even like this super scrappy kind of like put together thing still worked out,
But I think there's also something very, I don't know, I personally find it very fascinating because I think just this fascination towards indie music, indie films, right? You kind of like the scrappy nature of it. You don't like the polished.
Exactly.
And I don't think this is a product management specific thing, right? You could be a digital marketer and you want to aspiring a digital marketer. And you could do the same thing, right? I think most of the platforms give you free credits. Just go ahead and run ads.
How did the whole coronavirus situation change your side project, the timing of launching the side project, as well as how the market is responding, right?
Yeah, so I'm telling you, so I started thinking about it in April. In April, we had already Corona.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole year we had Corona, and the fact that I left my job last year in October. Funny thing is, like, it's a little bit of a fun fact that I was living, as I said, San Francisco and going to Portland, and back then my startup was not supporting remote work. Can you believe that? Just like a couple of months before, and that's why I had to leave. Um, if it, I mean, if I decided to leave a couple of months later, probably I would have still been with that startup, you know. So the life is like so crazy this year, but I'm so blessed that I actually decided to leave to Portland in October, because otherwise I would not have experienced all of this. So I would say for Side Project, it actually, I mean, you know, I don't have anything to compare with, because I have started it during Corona, and I think like the whole topic of what I'm covering with Side Project is basically practical education. You know, before, or I would say probably the era of online education, like online courses, Udemy, Coursera, and all this stuff was, I mean, is ending. You know, it's like it's oversaturated. There are so many courses nowadays. There are so many, I mean, even like products, programs, and all this stuff, which are focusing most on fundamentals and most on theory. You know, so there is like a lot of it. So I think what is interesting about this year is people are craving something different. So because you're working from home and suddenly you cannot go out with anyone, you know, you have like a little bit of extra time, although this whole kind of like work-life balance is totally out of whack. But some people find like a little bit more extra time, and they're like, okay, I want to try something different. And this is where basically I believe this is a perfect timing for launching Side Project, because basically we're giving people opportunity to learn by doing while they could be still working on all this stuff. So that's why for me, I think it is the perfect timing. I think like education this year is like really big topic. So, you know, life goes on. So people have to live now with the current situation. So there are still people who want to change careers. You know, you cannot do anything without it. So that's why I think Side Project, just I was lucky, I guess, or I was just like very um, I don't know. I was just in the right place in the right time, and was just like listening to people very good. Um, and that's why I had this kind of like realized that this is a problem, and I had like a new solution in place, you know. So, but in terms of the demand, I have a very good demand. So at the moment, the way the program is structured, so there are two pieces. So there is a community. This is how I started. So basically anyone can join from all around the world um, on Slack, and there is a ideas channel, for example, and people share their ideas and other people react with, okay, I want to join to the project, let's talk, and all this stuff. And basically projects are created and people keep working on them. And once I started this, a couple of weeks later, actually some of the very first projects who started on the community started reaching out back to me and asking for mentorship. And this is what kind of like, once again, was kind of like alarming or like alarm in my head. Is like, okay, it seems that I solved one part of the puzzle, but not the whole puzzle, you know? And the second piece of the puzzle is actually this mentorship, because when people are building projects and they're aspiring product managers, they're aspiring designers, it means that they really need mentorship because they do not know how to do it. And even like this whole piece, what I'm trying to connect, you know, this cross-functional work, engineers working with designers, PMs working with engineers, people are doing it for the first time. And like for us, because we were working in this field for some years, it feels natural. But when I look at kind of like, you know, how people experience it, it's not easy. It just, you know, it like really needs time to adjust to it. It really needs time to learn. And it really needs also mentorship, you know. So this is how I started kind of like the first stage of the second stage of Side Project as a Side Project Accelerator program. And with that, we have pretty good demand, as I said. Mostly we're accepting people now from Canada and US, just because of the time zones. But of course, I have big ambitions in terms of the conquering the world, and we'll see how it goes.
And like, is it converting well in the job market as well, as in the people who are doing projects with you?
Oh, this is such a great question. Thank you for asking, because today and yesterday was very beautiful days for me, because yesterday one of the cohort 1 alumni has written to me that she has got a job as a UX designer. And today, another designer from the current cohort also wrote me and said she has got a role also as a UX designer. So for me, it's basically the best news of the day all the time. It's not the only cases. We have a couple of more people who have got the jobs, but this is, I would never be advertising side project as like with the promise of if you do a side project, you're gonna get a job. It's definitely helpful for you, probably even more to stand out and get interviews. But during the interviews, you need a different skill set, right? So like to prepare for interviews, this is not what we're focusing on. So our main focus is like really to help you with practical work and it's like, you know, let you apply your theory into a practical project. So this is what we're focusing on. That people are basically writing me and saying, hey, Polina, I got this role and I'm so thankful because I was able to apply everything what I learned through Side Project, you know, like talking during the interview about my project, what I have built. You know, I think this is definitely helpful, but on top of Side Project, you have definitely to prepare to interview like additionally, you know, do case studies and I don't know, answer behavioral questions and all this stuff. So
I think one thing that comes to mind, right? I think this is what happened with the courses also, right? When the MOOCs sort of arrived at the scene, the completion rates were really poor, right? And it was a function of you being self-driven, like any person who's taking the course, and then the effort required. Do you see that being a challenge with the community, or like what's your experience like? Essentially, that's what I'm asking.
yeah, I mean, it's different. You know, there are some projects who are like super like surprising me also. People were starting like with super basics. We're just, okay, so in 6 weeks, we're going to launch a prototype and basically probably we'll stop there. But over the time, they become more ambitious. It is like super crazy just to observe it. You know, they never planned to build something like a startup out of it. They're still searching for jobs, but this is what I see. So I see it already a couple of cases where people are like, okay, so now we have a LinkedIn page. Now we have created our first promotion video. I'm like, really? You know, people are just becoming more ambitious. And this is, I think, what actually Side Project is good for. It's giving you more confidence, you know, just like because you're doing it, you start believing that you can do it. Because before you were just, okay, I heard this wonderful PM from Amazon was talking how it goes, but I've never tried it myself. And he's such like smart person. I'm not as smart as him, you know. It's like all this imposter syndrome what people experience. It all basically, I would not say all, but like a lot of it disappears once they start doing it. And of course, there are teams who break up, you know, so just imagine it's super strangers just come together, you know. So I think it's like always a risk that in the beginning everybody is like super excited, and we had teams with like 12 people and I'm like, okay, it's not gonna work. And you know, like after 2 months there are just like 5 people left, but they still carry on, you know. So 50% like left, but it's good. You know, so there is definitely different dynamic. I would say there is probably success rate is, of course, I would say in general much higher within the accelerator program because they have structure around them, and because they also have me all the time, and I'm basically giving them instructions week after week. I'm looking after them. You know, we have progress check-ins, but I'm also trying to replicate something like this, but in a light version for the community. So we're still working on it. It's definitely not easy because the scale is very different. But I'm trying to figure out the ways how to make it also more accessible and kind of how to motivate teams over a longer period of time, still be on track and keep working and all this stuff.
Yeah. So Paulina, a very quick question. Since your plans are to go global, right, in some time, eventually when you scale up, you will need that end result, right? You will need to portray that we kind of either we are replacing universities or in the job market that our projects are valued, right? Not as a side project, but in general. So I wanted to know your opinion. Whether do you think like side projects and learning something on your own or online edtech in general can replace degrees and or help you get better jobs or transition into careers?
This is a very good question. Let me think a little bit. Once again, I got my degree not in the US. So I studied in Ukraine, and then I got a scholarship to study in Germany. So I basically paid $0 for my degree, for my master's degree, and then I came to the US and was able to get a great job. I think in America specifically, it is very difficult because people are very, very in debt after they got even mediocre degree. So I think this should change. And I think online industry really is helping changing that. And, once and again, we're seeing the stories of students who are leaving universities, starting their startups and basically becoming millionaires or billionaires. It's not happening every day. And probably, it will never happen every day, but this is definitely possible. That's why in my mind, I do not see university is the only way into a good job or, secure financially life. I think definitely what universities are missing is this practical piece. This is another anecdote from my life. When I went to Germany and started studying there, my master's, I decided to take specialization in entrepreneurship and innovation management. Sounds cool, right? So I thought it's cool because I was like, wow, cool, like entrepreneurship. It was like the worst experience ever because my professor has never done anything practical. He was only talking about theory. And finally, there was kind of like the big boom in my education when I had to write my master's degree. I had a chance to write it with Startup Accelerator program. I was like over the top. I was so happy that they gave me this opportunity. Then I go to this professor for innovation management and entrepreneurship and tell him, okay, can we do it together? Can I write it with you? So I had to wait for a couple of months after his answer. And finally he told me, I have never done a practical master thesis. I would prefer you write something more theoretical. And it totally killed me at this point. So I changed the professor, But this is kind of like, I think, a good example of like how like traditional education is like super, super failing, So you have, I'm not against it. I think it gives us a lot, even like from the social and social perspective, you meet great people, you learn how to learn eventually and so on. But this practical piece is definitely missing, So that's why either you're trying to do many internships, work parallel to the university. This is what I've done also. Or maybe, maybe in 10 years, we'll say, okay, university is not an option anymore, especially today. Today, universities are also online. So what are we talking about, So all students are now, learning from the same professors and they're sitting at home. So why should I be learning and paying so much money if I can take the same courses on Coursera or edX or go to Side Prjct and build something, So that's why I think something will be changing, something will be shifting. And I think like this movement has already started.
And I think one thing which keeps coming up, which you mentioned right now, is that, there's a social element to it. You learn social skills, you make friends and all of that. To which again, like extremely like from a first principle basis, if that's the objective, then for say something like a side project, right? Wherein like what's more social or what's more interactive than actually working together? My point is like, if that's the goal, like why pay $200,000, which I think this like a lot of people do in the US and they sort of end up staying in debt for like majority part of their lives. So that I fundamentally think that argument doesn't stand if you really try to question it.
If you ask me, I would have totally done the university where I would be building something for 4 years, The only thing not to forget about is like you have to have mentors. So the same as we do with Side Project, like if it is like practical education still, you cannot leave people completely alone and just let them build something. Even like as a first-time founder myself, I also went to a startup accelerator because I also didn't have a clue, like what should I pay attention to and so on. And I was listening to people who are more experienced. So if instead of professors, we have mentors from the industry, oh my God, this is kind of like would be a cool standard of education, Yeah.
But again, what happens is I think the commercials take over and then you realize how much of a work it is to actually do something like, hands-on education. It's just not easy, right? Just for the simple reason. It's easy to sit in a class and like preach.
Then exactly.
There's the other side also, right? The acceptance in industry is equally important then. Unless that part is sorted, people will always move towards the university side, right?
Yeah, but there is something like I saw at least a couple of programs they call alternative MBA. And this is something like you can pay a fraction of regular MBA would cost. And it is, I think it takes you less time. Many people do it, and they have, like good conversion also, that actually like employers say, okay, it's still like a good MBA that you have done. Another confirmation for conversion would be all the boot camps. I don't know if you have many in India now, but in the US, like it first started with boot camps for engineers. Then came boot camps for UX designers and PMs, so for candidates, I would not say that it's like super easy now, because once again, it doesn't matter what kind of program you do. This is the same what I say people when they're coming into Side Project, it's like it's on you, like how much you invest into the program, how much you can do beyond the program. It's like it's all yours. That's why some people actually get the jobs and other people still do not, although they're going through the same education, But I mean, I think there is already kind of, I'll not say simplification, but like this shift is, is in movement. So it's not something completely new. So there is alternative education. For example, my husband has been studying structural engineering. He has been working like a couple of years in structural engineering. And then he decided to switch to software engineering. So he has done a boot camp and then he has got a job. And now since 5 years, he is a software engineer. So he has not studied like for 4 or 5 years in the university.
We'll sort of move on to sort of the other part of the conversation, which I think you briefly touched upon, that things have changed since the time you became a product manager, right? Back in 2012, I think, right? That was your first role. How have things changed? Because you've been there, like you've been in sort of down in the trenches, so to speak. So what's your 30,000 feet view?
Okay, I can say first from the perspective of candidates, I think it has become more difficult to get into the product management for somebody who is completely new. So for me, once again, there wasn't something like product management education, everybody was kind of co-creating it, co-creating best practices and all this stuff. Nowadays, when I see what is already available for the candidates, from one perspective, it is great that they have these resources. From another perspective, it is actually adding the level of complexity of expectations, because companies already expect from like people who are graduating from universities that they already know product management. They have done a couple of internships in product management and so on and so forth. So I think for candidates, it has become definitely much more difficult. And I think what have changed drastically is like how hot product management has become, like every single person I meet is like really wants into product management. And I got into product management by accident. As I said, I wanted to do something with innovation management. It sounded like similar to innovation management. And that's why when they offered me a role, I was like, okay, I will try it. But would I say, did it kind of like responded to my expectations? Also not, because I had no clue what product management is, so that's why I think this complexity for candidates. And the second is just like, there are so many kind of best practices which are already established. That's why basically now product managers are not really so much innovating, I think, in the practices, how they approach product management, more or less adopting what is already there,
We had Swati, she's a lead PM at Facebook. And she said this exact same thing, and I think we see it every day, right? You can study all you want, right? And it's commoditized. Like everybody has studied the same blog. Everybody has read the whatever founder school or, product hunt blog and all that. So,
and it's not even about creating new content, because people are writing basically about the same stuff again and again. It's like really about curating the content, because there are many articles which were written like 4 years ago, and they are still much better than the new articles which are written by new PMs. It is great. People are kind of discovering it for themselves, that's why they need kind of like, they want to write about it. And this is also what other people suggest them to do. It's like, okay, if you want to stand out, just create a blog, that's why people are doing it. But there are great articles from a couple of years back, which are still great. So that's why curation, I think, is like the main piece in terms of like education and product management now.
My problem with that is that it's very important to like pay attention to who you are listening to, right? For example, everybody's putting out blogs. Like I find myself getting very confused when I like read up a blog. So again, I try to filter like who is writing the blog. Again, I think it just comes down to competency more than anything else.
It's a good time to touch upon your initiatives, groups which you started like recently for the women in tech, right? So how do you think, why is this a buzzword and needs specific companies?
Oh, I would not say it is a buzzword. I mean, I'm a woman, obviously. So
Yeah.
for me, I, I actually, I would say maybe I might agree with you that it became a buzzword. But I think when I was starting my first startup, it was 8 years ago or 7 years ago. And I felt really awkward when I was alone in the room with all other founders, which were men. So, and this is, I think, also collided, like this time collided also with the times when this whole thing started more in support of women in tech, women entrepreneurs, like women in product, all this stuff. And in the beginning, I was very skeptical. And just like what you said is like, why do I need a special treatment? I mean, I'm good as I am, so I can handle it, you know, like I can handle it to be like in a more mixed community and so on and so forth. So I was like very skeptic in the beginning. Um, but over time, I think when I was just seeing that women are underrepresented in certain positions, I wished for myself that there were more women that I could relate to. Because once again, so I think one time it was like really a situation which I still can remember it. I think it was my second or third pitch in my life. So I was invited to some kind of event. I went there. It was like 30 people or something like that. They were all men. And normally I'm like super easygoing person, but I was like shocked that I'm just like by myself. So I went to the balcony and I was calling my co-founder, who is the man. I was like, okay, I don't know if I can do it. Like, can you come? Can you just come with me? So in the end of the day, he basically persuaded me that I can do it. But this situation kind of like still stuck in my brain till now, because it was like very weird, just feeling like, you know, like one man army, although nobody was attacking me, but it just like felt awkward. But I was still skeptical to different communities. I think the moment when I left Germany and went to San Francisco was a very kind of like changing moment for me in my life, because I went to San Francisco so with my husband, but we didn't know so many people. And I also didn't know any single product manager in the city, so neither men nor women. And I also got pregnant. So I was not only I got a new job as a product manager, but I basically was not only the only women product manager in my startup. I was also, you know, having a baby, and I felt so isolated. I basically barely knew anyone in the city. I didn't know any product managers. You know, it was just a horrible situation. You know, I just felt like really alone. And I think was the first time when I was like, okay, I just want to get out there and talk to other women who might also have children and just see how they are doing, you know. And this is how I started. I think it's called PM Breakfast. So I just you know, I have the same structure every time. I just posted, I think back then on Facebook and said, hey, this is what I want to do in the morning, because I don't have time in the evening and all cool events are happening in the evening. So I cannot do it in the evening because I have to go to my baby. So, but I can do in the morning. So if anyone wants to join me to have a breakfast and just to chat about stuff like product management and women in product management, please join. And it was great, you know, like different companies started hosting our events. I met super many women through this PM breakfast. I met my future co-founder for She Aspired and all this stuff. So I think there are some topics where it makes sense that they're discussed from woman to woman. And I don't know, maybe it's biologically, maybe we're overestimating this, but I feel that some topics people are, or women are more kind of like will be more willing to open up in front of other women because they feel more understood by other women than if they will be opening up in front of other men, you know. So there are some things which I feel, okay, it makes sense. For example, Side Prjct, I have created on purpose to be a multi-gender, very inclusive, like doesn't matter from which country, doesn't matter what gender, ethnicity and all this stuff, because I think this is how I want to mimic the real world situation. Like this is how you're going to be working in the company. That's why I don't want to be like and say, okay, only for women, side projects only for women. Great. No, but She Aspired, this is more kind of supporting women who are willing to start in product management from more I would say, psychological and confidence perspective in terms of their skills, helping them out, figure out their strengths, talk with them about imposter syndrome, like how to battle it, invite other women who are sharing their stories, how they broke into product management. So it's like slightly different flavor. And for that initiative, I felt it is totally appropriate to keep it within women.
We being guys, I think it's a sensitive topic, so to speak, wherein they clearly things we don't understand, and we recognize that fact, right? There's no way we can imagine what's it like to operate. We discuss and on this conversation specifically is that wherein people try to hire exclusively women, for example, right? And we work in tech, right? In that sense, and I've had this conversation with women developers as well, right? Like friends I have, and in general. The feeling they get is it's like discounting their hard work and their proficiency, because if you hire just because somebody was a woman, right, which is great, it's important to have more women, that's great. But if you're hiring somebody because they're a woman and not a better developer, then the other people who have really earned it are at a disadvantage, while that individual could be, and net as a company, as an organization. For example, if you're hiring for Side Prjct, right, like would you hire because you want to ensure a certain gender balance? Or like how do you approach this particular aspect of women in tech?
Yeah, I would also, what you have said in terms of some answers that you have gotten from some women engineers who feel that their value is kind of discounted because companies saying I'm only hiring women. I would probably agree with that, and I cannot say that it would be my strategy. I am having many people who are applying to become a part of Side Prjct, right? So I get like 100 applications, right? And I can take only 15 people. So, so for me, I think it's the most important that there is some diversity, because from diversity, everyone would benefit. At the same time, I'm also looking at the skill level and at the kind of like social fit, team fit, mental fit, and all this stuff. So that's why I cannot say that I'm completely discounting everything else and just look at the gender and think, okay, so if this person is a woman, and if it is even like the Black woman or brown woman, so everybody's talking, we have to support them, I will only like take this woman. No, but in many cases, I think you have to be also critical in terms of not being blind, in terms of who you're trying to support and like for which reasons. For me, I definitely want to see like more women in different positions, because very often, and I think it was discussed many times, like this bro cultures, because there are more men, it is a natural tendency to support men, because you're supporting people who are similar to you. Maybe it will be not a very popular thought, but I'm really thinking critically about this regulations which are saying on the board member, like on the board seats, there should be this quote of women. I'm like, I don't know if I'm happy about it or it feels weird. So I'm a little bit, I think I'm still trying to digest this topic. From my kind of natural inclination, I would love to support women, but I think we have to be also very, I would say, thoughtful in the way how we're supporting them, and not only women, like also like how we support diversity. I would say one thing we all have to keep in mind is to question ourselves maybe a couple of times in terms of like, why do I feel this person is the right fit, and the reason I feel this person is the right fit, is this the right reason, so it's not straightforward decisions.
One thing you mentioned on the sort of the bro culture, right? Because then they are also not doing it like purely for competency. So the idea is to hire for the best person for the job. Now, if you're hiring a bro or a guy because they fit you more, then that's the same as you have like any person hiring a woman because she's a woman, right? So I think those are just biases we need to sort of overcome.
I was very curious to know, like, how do you get money? Because money is at the back of your mind, right? Always. And since you've started so many companies over like a decade or so now, right? And in between, you have worked as a product manager in various companies. So how do you solve for do you get funding, or you have that family background of sorts, or how are you coping up with things, especially with your family now?
Yeah, this is a great question. Okay, I think some background is needed because it will basically reflect of how I think about money now. So once again, because I had this first time founder experience, we were thinking from the very beginning, hey, we need to raise money. This is basically, I would not say that it was more important than building the product, but it was like as important. And I think it is so overvaluated. In the end of the day, we raised some money after we have been bootstrapping for some time. But I didn't pay so much attention to from whom am I raising money? Are these people the right fit for our company? Can I like get along with these people on the longer time? Because, having investors is like, almost extended family. So I think I have made a couple of mistakes there. That's why with current initiatives and so on, I think I'm more thoughtful. I'm definitely more focused on really solving the problem. And with Side Project, I mean, it's very simple business model now. So people basically pay a tuition fee for accelerator program. And this is how I generate money. I really like this. So I don't like earn tons of money now, but given that it's like 6 months in, or like the accelerator program is probably like 4 months in or 5 months in, I still get some money. It's like a huge difference to my first startup where we were not getting money like for 3 years and we were just burning money. So it actually gives me a very good feeling that, okay, I want to build sustainable business. But the biggest learning that I have now is, I mean, you can build sustainable business and generate income without investors. And it's even all possible doing it part-time, because I'm doing it actually part-time because of the Corona situation and all this stuff around us. I am actually the primary caregiver to my daughter, who is 3 years old. So most of my day I actually spend with her, and the rest of the hours that I have, for example, now super late in the evening, this is what I dedicate to building my things, So I'm doing it like on a super low time budget, and it still generates money. And of course, like I have planned it the way that it will be growing. And I think probably in the next month I'll be hiring my first hire. So that's why it's all possible. And I think the most important thing is, once again, you can be a mompreneur, you can be a part-time entrepreneur, you can be solo entrepreneur. The main thing that you're making impact. And I feel this is like the place where I am now. I see how we're changing lives, basically. Also, like we're giving confidence to the people who came like with so many doubts into the side project, and it definitely makes me happy. So I think I'm less focused on like making it like super, super big and venture size, because I know the cost of having investors in your company. Many people think when you're building something as a founder, you're the boss. But at the moment when you have investors, this is a big question mark, who is the boss? And very often investors become somebody who is actually dictating your long-term strategy and so on and so forth. So I feel very comfortable in the situation that actually now I'm in the stage where I'm able to make both the decisions and generate money and still take care of my daughter. So this is basically where I am now.
Having your husband on side, I think that also helps, right? So it's a kind of partnership. Because I'm sure if you're alone, especially at our age, suppose since we aren't married, we have to take those decisions alone, right? Sometimes you get that thought in your mind, right?
Yeah, this was also a great learning from the first startup. We were already married back then, so did many mistakes in terms of personal relationships, so try not to make them again. Actually, today was a great day because today was the first time that we actually partnered with my husband on Side Project. Who knows, maybe we'll make it into family business,
There's this one section that we have, try to have in all of our podcasts is that, just like a couple of minutes for you, like in that sense, what would you want happen, just like for anybody who will eventually listen to this. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to.
Okay, let me think.
Yeah.
Okay, I will just shamelessly ask for what I really need. As I told you, so I'm trying to kind of like keep the momentum of Side Project, and definitely this all would not have been possible without mentors. So that's why I'm always looking for mentors, although I have already like an army of mentors. But without them, the whole situation will not gonna work, So that's why I'm looking for mentors. So if you or anyone else knows great mentors in product management, in design, in engineering, they're definitely welcome to say hello. I would be happy to share details of mentorship with them. We have different models. So basically, some mentors are only doing workshops. Other mentors are dedicating like 30 minutes to 1 hour per week. Other mentors are offering office hours. Other mentors also are more team dedicated mentors, but I'm actually looking for more mentors. So we are able also to, at some point, to offer more cohorts per year, because at the moment, I think at the cadence, what we're doing is 4 cohorts per year, because every cohort is 12 weeks. So at some point, in order to make it more scalable and to give this opportunity to more people, I would love that. At the same time, in order to go beyond US, I'm also looking for partners in other countries. So who would be basically building it with me and offering this experience in some other countries.
Who is this ideal persona, right?
So,
who should consider themselves to reach out and, who will be good fit for, say, a mentor as well as, the partners that you mentioned?
Yeah, mentors, I think somebody who probably has, I would say, at least 3 years of experience in the field, and somebody who just enjoys mentoring. So just randomly met many people who appear to enjoy teaching other people and helping out. So I think this natural inclination is definitely a good thing to have if you want to try it out. If you have never mentored before, it's also fine. But I think like some level of expertise in the field would be helpful. I would say like the bar is like 3 years. This is for mentors, and somebody who has a little bit of time to dedicate. So once again, it could be one time, 1 hour, or it could be every week, 1 hour for 12 weeks or for a year. It's up to you. I'm also offering some payment for team dedicated mentors. So because they dedicate more time than others. And for the partner, I think it should be something a little bit entrepreneurial, and somebody who is willing to dedicate, I would say, around 10 to 15 hours per week. So definitely you could keep your regular job and have it as a side kind of hustle income. I think also somebody who has some expertise, I guess, in product management or in project management. I think both is relevant in this case. Yeah. And somebody maybe who has a good network in the specific country.
Right. Yeah. Right. And from a mentor perspective, like, are you looking for people in product or like software design as well? So anybody who's interested. So across the board, anybody who is listening, who's watching, feel free to reach out to her. How can people find you? How does anybody reach out to you? We'll obviously people to you, but like directly, how do people?
I mean, on LinkedIn, I think it will be awesome. So I'm Polina Marchenko on LinkedIn. Or you can go directly to sideprojct.com, sign up to our platform, and then I'm very active on Slack. So you can definitely find me on Slack like Gagan did. I really enjoyed it. Really nice meeting you guys. Let's stay in touch. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you with our episode.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Then I wish you a great day and talk soon.
Yeah.
You too. Bye.